my mind is so screwed up. I guess it was last Thursday. Sorry about missing Thursday. It's not been a good semester for me. So hopefully you watched those 2 videos, 1.5, something like that. So that we'll pick up on chapter 9. We should finish today unless I get bogged down in the second half when Fredo and Sam are making their way up Mount Doom.
So much is happening.
Yeah, I know. Who else just came in? Name? Bullock. So much has happened since, like, you mean in the books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, literally.
Yeah. The world changes every day, it seems. So, chapter 9, last debate. And if we have time, we'll go back, because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was covered in those video lectures that I would still kind of like to discuss. But like I said, it was fairly well covered before. Last debate. What's the debate about? Chapter 9? So the battle for Minas Tirith has been won. Battle of Pelennor Fields has been won. Faramir's been saved, you know. His father was going to sacrifice him, all that. Not literally sacrifice him, but burn him to death with himself and all that. Gandalf stops that, Pippin, etc. Stop that from happening. So Minas Tirith is safe for a while, right? I said the battle for Minas Tirith has been won. Has the battle for Middle-earth been won? No. This is just one battle. If you were to compare this to something like World War II, this would be like Battle of the Bulge or Guadalcanal. Big, important, but a lot still yet to do. So what's the last debate?
Is it defend Minas Tirith or go and try and invade Mordor?
It's literally what to do now. Okay? What are the options? Defend Minas Tirith. What else? Take the battle to Sauron. Both of those are what kind of actions? Both of those involve what on the part of the defenders of Minas Tirith or the attackers on Sauron? They're offensive in a sense. They're military. Okay? What's the third option that Gandalf mentions? Where is the victory going to come from? Turn to around page 878. Gandalf kind of begins the debate, so to speak. And he says, listen to the words of the steward of Gondor before he died. So, talking about Denethor, he's laying on his funeral pyre that he's about to light, and he says, you may triumph in the fields of the Pelennor for a day, but against the power that has now arisen, there is no victory. I mean, we could use Tolkien's comment about applicability in the introduction or the forward and go immediately to like today with Ukraine. They might get little victories. They will not win against Russia. Why? One simple reason.
Russia's a massive powerhouse.
They got millions of people, men they can conscript. Ukraine doesn't. It's just sheer numbers. That's what Denethor means. Why does he say that, though? Gandalf says, the stones of seeing do not lie. What are the stones of seeing? It's one of the questions on the quiz. The Palantir, plural Palantiri. They do not lie. Do they show all the truth? No. Like anything that someone, trying to think how to put this. Like anything that someone presents for someone else, it's always what? Think of this. We used to have TV screens in every room. You know, think of a TV. It's all what?
All whatever they want you to see, correct?
To use the word that's used all the time today, it's curated. The word that used to be used is it's edited. You are shown what? What the people behind the camera want you to see. Denethor saw what? Only what Sauron wanted him to see. What happened when Aragorn looked into the Palantir? He's going to tell us in a few minutes. I forgot that it's coming up. He made Sauron see what? Notice, he made Sauron see something. See what? As the king, the heir of Isil, and he pulls out his sword. Sauron's familiar with that sword, or at least is familiar with that sword in its first incarnation, thousands of years ago, because he could do this. Even Gollum says, yeah, he's missing a finger. Okay? So, the stones of seeing do not lie. Not even the Lord of Barad-dûr can make them do so. He can, maybe, by his will, choose what things shall be seen by weaker minds. Okay? And that's why he says, what did Denethor see? He saw great forces arrayed against him in Mordor, and more still being gathered. In other words, he saw that which truly is. Does he see those forces overrun all of Middle-earth? No, because that has not happened. He can't make them show something that isn't real. Similarly, notice this is the second instance, kind of, where we get an idea of something that can tell forth, that is, tell what is happening now, tell reality, or it can possibly here, tell what might happen, the Mirror of Galadriel. But Galadriel doesn't command the mirror to see or to show what she wants it to show to people who look into it. It just shows what it shows. So, he goes on and says, hardly has our strength sufficed to beat off the first great assault. We barely won the Battle of Pelennor Fields. What's one of the reasons they did? What are two of the reasons they did? Louder? The woman?
Yes, I can't say her name right.
Éowyn.
Yes.
Okay? Éowyn, aka Durnhelm. Okay? Peter Jackson totally blew it in the film because he had Éowyn reveal herself to Mary before the climactic scene in the book. Why does he do that? I honestly don't know. Other than strong woman, warrior kind of a thing. It's important in the book. Why? And we're going to come back to the other possible reason why they win the Battle of Pelennor Fields. What does the prophecy say? No man may hinder me, the captain of the nine. Who's the captain of the nine? The Witch King of Angmar. Angmar, the Witch King, we have to go back to Book 1. And where does that come up? Fog on the Barrow Downs. When Frodo, Merry, Pippin, and Sam get captured by the Barrow-wight, Tom comes and rescues them. What does he do after he rescues them? He pulls everything out of the burial ground, out of the barrow, all these weapons, and he tells them these weapons were forged in the battle against the Witch King of Angmar. Those weapons had spells woven into them. Only one of those weapons could have done what Mary's weapon does when he stabs him in the back of the knee. That's why that whole chapter and a half with Tom Bombadil is important. That's a eucatastrophe. You can never count on that kind of thing to happen again. Okay? So Éowyn, but not just Éowyn, it's Éowyn and the riders of the Rohirrim arriving when? It's like a 1930s Cowboys and Indians movie. And just in the nick of time, you see the American cavalry come over the hill, all, blowing the bugle, the whole 9 yards. What's the other side of that? So the Battle of Pelennor Fields is, say, happening here. You've got the Anduin River over here. You've got the Riders Rowan coming in. Who comes up the Anduin? In what?
In the enemy ships.
Pirate ships, essentially. I mean, these are like almost like they're flying the Jolly Roger. Until, what pennant do they put up the mainmast?
That's the symbol of the king.
The sign of the House of Elendil. The white tree, the 7 stars. Who can fly that? Only one person. Only someone from the House of Elendil. Only the king. So between Hammer, Anvil, you've got the forces of Sauron. Gandalf says, we just barely won this one. They're all sitting there. Well, probably not these leaders, but the men that are still like, there, we kicked Sauron, you know. So, the next will be greater. This war then is without final hope, as Denethor perceived. Victory cannot be, notice, this war is without final hope. What does that mean? Literally, the war cannot be won. It is impossible. We cannot produce enough arms, we cannot produce enough fighters to win in a military battle. So, victory cannot be achieved by arms, whether you sit here to endure siege after siege, take the waves that will come, or march out to be overwhelmed beyond the river. And those are the 2 options that they have. You have only a choice of evils. Prudence would counsel you to strengthen such strong places as you have. In other words, build the fortress up. Increase the size of the walls. And there await the onset. And there await until Sauron will have overwhelming force and can just... For so shall the time before your end be made a little longer. What could someone then respond to that with?
You're just putting out the inevitability.
So why? Why not just open the gates and say, take it? So, Imrahil, then you would have us retreat to Minas Tirith or Dol Amroth or to Dunarrow, and there sit like children on sandcastles when the tide is flowing. It's a beautiful image. Because what happens to a sandcastle when the... Gone. Gandalf, that would be no new counsel. In other words, that's what you've been doing. That's what we've been doing, he says. Have you not done this and little more in all the days of Denethor? Okay? We've been building up this great defense. And I could go off on a tangent with modern alliances and everything, but I won't. He says, no, I said this would be prudent. I do not counsel prudence. What's another word for prudence? Wise. Wisdom. He's saying, I'm not counseling for wisdom. So if you're not counseling wisdom or a wise course of action, what are you counseling?
Rash one.
Rash, foolish? I said victory could not be achieved by arms. I still hope for victory, but not by arms. And he brings in Frodo. In comes the Ring of Power, the foundation of Barad-dûr, the hope of Sauron. And he says, you all now know enough about this. In other words, it's no longer a secret. If he regains it, we're goners. Okay? His victory will be swift and complete. So complete, none can foresee the end of it while this world lasts. He gets the ring back. Game over. Roll the credits. It's done. There will be no coming back from it. If it is destroyed, then he will fail. And his fall will be so low that none can foresee his arising ever again. Does that mean no evil will ever arise again? No, he is just a manifestation of it. He will lose the best part of the strength that was native to him in his beginning. Native to him. That is the strength that was created in him when he was created. Who or what is Sauron? He's a Maya. Just like Gandalf, just like Saruman, okay? And the other three wizards. Just like Luthien Tinuviel's mother. That was native in the beginning. All that was made or begun with that power will crumble. Everything made as a result of Sauron's putting his power into the ring will crumble. Okay? What does that everything include? Possibly. Galadriel thinks it does. Okay? Lothlorien. Why are there no elves today?
Yeah, that would include like orcs even, and
They'll eventually die out. They won't. This isn't like, in the one horrible Star Wars thing where they take out the drone master ship in space and all the drones, all go. The orcs they'll die eventually. Okay. All that was made or begun with that power will crumble, and he will be maimed forever, becoming a mere spirit of malice that gnaws itself in the shadows, but cannot grow again or take shape. And so a great evil of this world will be removed. Other evils there are. Okay? He is but a servant or emissary. He says, it is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set. Finish the sentence and then make a point back to the first book. Uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. In other words, taking the language Gandalf uses and applying the our to us, what is our job in this world? To leave the world a better place. In other words, go back to here, it is to solve the problem of the evils of their time. Our job, to use Gandalf's language, is to solve the evils of our world. That is, right now. Not 100 years from now. Not 200, not 500, not 50. Now. What's one simple reason for that? We don't know what they'll be 50 years from now. What they will be 50 years from now depends on what we do now. That's what he's saying. Whether they shall have is not ours to rule. Go back to what Gandalf and Frodo talk about in the Shadow of the Past. He says, Frodo, we must decide what to do with such time as we have. Frodo's now discovered the ring is the one ring of power. What are you going to do with it, Frodo? You can't just pass it off to the next generation. We in the United States, we've been passing off problems to the next generation for the last, I don't know how many generations. At least since probably 1970, 1980. Social Security as an example, okay? The so-called lockbox, which doesn't actually exist because all the money goes in Social Security and then it's spent. It's not spent on people who are retiring. It's being spent for all other kinds of stuff. There's one big, giant, massive IOU. That's why it's, always a problem. He says, Sauron knows all this. He knows that this precious thing which he lost has been found again, but he doesn't know where. Or so we hope. So, he's in doubt. He knows also that there are some here who can wield this thing. Do I not guess rightly, Aragorn, that you showed yourself to him? I did. Before I rode from the Hornburg. Okay? I deemed that the time was right. That is, before he left, just before he split off from Theoden and Éomer and Éowyn and such and the riders, and he and Legolas and Gimli and the riders from the north took the paths of the dead. Just before that, he showed himself. Okay? I deemed the time was right. The stone had come to me for just such a purpose. It was 10 days since the ring bearer went east from Rauros, and the Eye of Sauron, I thought, should be drawn out from his own land. In other words, what did Frodo need? A distraction, a diversion. Too seldom has he been challenged since he returned to his tower. Though if I'd foreseen how swift would be his onset and answer, I might not have dared then. Okay? Aomer. But you say all is in vain if he has the ring. Why should he think it not vain to assail us if we have it? Gandalf, he's not sure. Maybe there's someone in Minas Tirith who has the ring. Maybe not. It's the maybe not that kind of keeps Sauron from acting, he says. So, he's watching. He sees and hears much. The Nazgul are abroad. They fly over the fields, etc., etc. His doubt is growing even as we speak here. His eye is now straining towards us, blind almost to all else that is moving. So we must keep it. That is, we must keep him focused where? Outside Mordor. Away from his back door, so to speak. As Aragorn has begun, so we must go on. We must push Sauron to his last throw. We must call out his hidden strength. We must march out, skipping every now and then a sentence, we must march out to meet him. We must make ourselves the bait, though his jaws should close on us. Why? If he pours all of his troops out of Mordor, it makes it that much more empty. It gives Frodo from a 1% to a 1.5% chance to achieve victory. Okay? We must walk open-eyed into that trap with courage, but small hope for ourselves. In other words, they not only become the bait, but what are they doing of themselves? They're sacrificing themselves. This is the opposite of reaching out and grasping for power. It's a different kind of power, this idea of sacrifice. We're going to see it in the Harry Potter novels. In fact, we're going to see it in almost all 7 of the Harry Potter novels. It may well prove that we ourselves shall perish utterly in a black battle far from the living land, so that even if Barad-dûr be thrown down, we shall not live to see a new age. Go back for a moment to Aragorn talking to Éomer, and Eothane, I think it is, interrupts and says something about, do we walk among legends around the green world and green earth? And Aragorn says a man can do both, of course. And then when Aragorn and Éowyn split up, Éowyn wants to march with him into battle and everything. He says, you can't. Anybody remember that scene? Why does she say she doesn't want to stay behind? I mean, this is the proto-feminist kind of mentality she's showing.
She wants glory.
She wants glory. She wants to ride off into battle. She says, all you're saying is it's okay for women to die left behind because they are of no use, really. And he said, no, just the opposite. In that passage, what does Aragorn attempt to get Éowyn to see? If you don't stay behind and look after the elderly, the children, the infirm, who will? Some other, as he puts it, lord or captain will have to. In other words, it's not an unimportant task. And she says, yeah, but all that means is if you guys all die in battle, then nobody's going to really care about what happens to us. Or, take it back, nobody's going to care what happens to us. And he says, if you guys are left for the enemy to come take care of, 1, we're all going to be dead anyways. And 2, there aren't going to be any stories told, period. Why is she concerned about stories being told? What Jacob said, glory. She wants glory. Aragorn's trying to get her to see that there are different kinds of glory. There's martial military glory, and there's also a kind of glory that one can get being the last one standing in a futile battle, even though no one ever hears your name. Okay? That's what Gandalf is suggesting here. We might go out, we might get slaughtered. And if we do, the implication is if Frodo doesn't achieve the quest, nobody's going to know anything we ever did. Does that mean it was meaningless? No. So, chapter 10, they march out. So, We got Gandalf, we got Aragorn, we got Legolas, we've got Gimli. So the fellowship, the band's getting back together again, kind of. Who else goes of the fellowship? Pippin. Why? Why not Merry?
Because Mary's already done his great deed.
And he's wounded.
And that too.
He's, in the houses of healing, recuperating. Pippin hasn't. What great deed has Pippin done so far?
Saved Faramir.
Kind of saved Faramir.
Kind of.
If it hadn't been for Pippin, Faramir would be literally toast. I mean, he'd be ashes. Okay? But that's not a military victory. He hasn't done anything military, martial-wise yet. He still doesn't. I mean, passes out when a troll falls on him, essentially. So, chapter 10, Black Gate opens. They ride out, they meet the mouth of Sauron, or the messenger of Sauron. This is 888, 889. He challenges them. Is there anyone out there, equal to me, et cetera, et cetera? Nobody says anything. Aragorn looks him in the eyes and just holds him, in a staring contest. Top of 889. The mouth of Sauron, as he's also called, or the messenger, quails. I mean, he literally kind of backs up and looks down at the ground. I'm a herald and ambassador. I may not be assailed, All Aragorn's doing is staring at him. So, they talk a little bit, and what does he show them?
The mithril coat.
Frodo's mithril coat, cloak, okay, and Pippin, what goes through Pippin's mind? Immediately, Frodo's dead. How else could they have gotten the mithril coat and the cloak? Okay, so he offers their terms. Gandalf asks, what are the terms? That is, what are the terms of surrender? He offers them. Okay. Bottom of 890. Gandalf says, where's the prisoner? Every movie where somebody gets kidnapped, I need to talk to Fred. I need to make sure he's alive, Where's Fred? Where's Frodo? Show us to him. And he says, do not bandy words in your insolence with the mouth of Sauron. You don't get to ask questions like that. Okay? So Gandalf says, all right, we're going to take these. And he throws aside his cloak, and he's now not Gandalf the Grey, old and hunched over. He's Schwarzenegger on steroids and Gandalf strides forward, takes the belongings, and all hell breaks loose. It's almost like they walked into an ambush. It's not literally, because it can't be an ambush when you're going up there and you're standing in front of the big black gates. But we see orcs and trolls and everything, start coming out from the caves and tunnels on the sides. Battle goes on. In 892-93, very end of the chapter, we're left with Pippin. And notice, Pippin had bowed, crushed with horror, when he heard Gandalf reject the terms and doom Frodo to the torment of the tower. But he had mastered himself. What does that mean?
He's gained control of his emotions.
We're going to see the same idea in the Harry Potter novels beginning around the 5th book. Harry's got to learn to control himself. Pippin takes control. To use sports psychology language, he digs deep.
Didn't Sam do that in the
Later. Yep. Well, in just a few moments we're gonna see this when we turn to the second half of Return of the King. Because when we finished Two Towers, what mental state was Sam in? At the end of the choices of Samwise Gamgee.
Anguish.
Why? What's
He had left Frodo.
Because he realizes, one, Frodo's alive. He thought he was dead. 2, Frodo's captured. 3, Frodo's locked up and Sam can't get to him. He's thinking, I am named properly. His name, by the way, Samwise, it means in Old English, half-wise. In other words, kind of dumb. That's why he's a gardener, not a, Frodo. So, he thinks, I wish Mary were here. Well, we might die together, Mary and I, and since we die, and since die we must, why not? Well, he's not here, he says, but I'll die well anyways. And even as all this stuff's going in his mind, okay, and the troll falls on him and he stabs upwards, nice little, almost an echo of Sam with Shelob, stabbing upwards. Last 2 paragraphs. So it ends as I guessed it would. We lose, they win. His thought said, even as it fluttered away, and it laughed a little within him ere it fled, almost gay, that is joyful, happy, not gay, it seemed to be casting off at last all doubt and care and fear. And then, even as it winged away into forgetfulness, it heard voices, that is, his thought. He's not yet unconscious. It heard voices, and they seemed to be crying in some forgotten world far above. The eagles are coming. The eagles are coming. And Pippin's thinking, Bilbo, why? Because in the Battle of 5 Armies in The Hobbit, when all looks lost, the eagles come, and they turn the tide. He's thinking, I'm in Bilbo's story. Notice stories always go on, they never come to an end. This is my tale, and it is ended now. Goodbye. His thought fled far away, etc. And then what does Tolkien do? Notice in one sense, Tolkien's a cruel, sadistic little SOB. Because the 2 Towers ends with what? Frodo captured by the orcs, left for dead by Sam. Sam thinks, I've got to take the ring. I've got to go become, Samwise the Magnificent, the great gardener of Mordor and everything. He overcomes the temptation, okay? And then Tolkien leaves. The book ends. We have to wait 4 or 5 more months. Tolkien's avid readers, 1955, get the Return of the King. They turn the first page, and it's not Frodo and Sam. We're back with the passing of the Great Company. Now we get Frodo and Sam, Tower of Cirith Ungol. Okay? He puts the ring on. He sees, he hears. Notice all of his senses but sight, this kind of sight, are improved. They're heightened, essentially. So he takes off the ring, page 899. And he looks at the mountain of fire and turns to the left, and he sees the Tower of Cirith Ungol. This is the Tower of the White Moon. Used to be Tower of Minas Ithil, Tower of the Moon. Okay, the 2 towers. Most scholars think it's this tower in Orthanc. Some say it's this tower in Minas Tirith. Some, not many, think it's Barad-dûr in either Minas Tirith or Orthanc, but you can go back and forth. So, page 900. So Sam keeps looking. He looks north. He sees Barad-dûr and such, and we're told it was indeed one of the works of Minas Ithil, Gondor long ago, an eastern outpost of the defense of Ithilien made when, after the last alliance, men of Western Essa kept watch on the evil land of Sauron where his creatures still lurked. In other, what is now called the Tower of Cirith Ungol had been part of this beautiful wall, so to speak, keeping the Mordorians, whatever, in. Okay? But now it's all vile, let's just say. And he starts to think about the ring. But there is no comfort there, only dread and danger. Bottom of 900. No sooner had he come inside of Mount Doom, burning far away, than he was aware of a change in his burden. As it drew near the great furnaces where in the deeps of time it had been shaped and forged, the ring's power grew and became more fell, untamable, save by some mighty will. More fell, more dangerous, more perilous word Tolkien often uses. So, untamable, save by some mighty will. And as Sam stood there, even though the ring was not on him, he's not wearing it, okay? He feels himself enlarged. He goes from being 3 foot Sam Gamgee to 6'8", you know. And what happens? Wild fantasies arose in his mind. Why?
Trying to convince him to put it on.
What does Gandalf say is the way of the ring to him, Gandalf? The power to do good. Sam's thinking, he's looking at Mordor, the vast wasteness of Mordor. And he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, flocking to it, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, armies flocking to him. And then all the clouds rolled away, and at his command, the Vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees and brought forth fruit. He could turn this vast ugliness, this sterile death, to fecundity and productivity. Make it this beautiful garden. He's not even wearing the ring, and it's tempting him. And we're told, in that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. But also deep down in him lived still unconquered his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. Okay? The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due. Notice in the two paragraphs preceding that, it became more fell, untamable, save by some mighty will. What is the mighty will that tames the temptation of the ring?
Not wanting power.
Not wanting power, and, I mean, that's the really important one. Kind of, Sam knows who he is. One of the most important two-word phrases probably ever uttered by anyone. Outside the oracle at Delphi, in Delphi, Greece, there was a stone. This story goes back at least 2,500 years. And on that stone was written, "Know thyself." When Socrates was told, "You're the wisest man in the earth, wisest man in the world," he's like, "Get out of here." That's why if you read Plato's dialogues, which are supposedly dialogues of Socrates, going around talking to people, asking them all kinds of questions. The reason he's doing that is he's trying to prove he's not the wisest man in the world. So he starts just going around and people start following him. He's trying to find someone wiser. But he doesn't. Why? Because he knows he's not wise. And that is his wisdom. That's why he knows himself better than anyone else. Sam knows something about himself. I'm not meant for this kind of greatness. What do I need?
A little bitty garden.
A little bitty garden. And you got to understand, America's not England by any means. When they're talking about one small garden, they refer to gardens, if you live like in London, your garden is your little front area in front of your house before the street. That garden, I'm not kidding, might be like the space, the square footage, from here to into that desk over to this wall. And that's where you have your yard. That little bit of grass right there, maybe some flowers around it. That's what Sam's talking about. A little tiny plot of land. Why? Because he's a little tiny person. He doesn't need more. And it's that knowledge, that inner sense of who and what I am, that enables him to overcome the ring. Just like Frodo in the Barrow-wights barrow. Frodo can use the ring and escape, but what draws him back? His love for Sam and the others. It's Sam's love for Frodo here also. So, he doesn't claim the ring as his own, and I'm going to skip a bunch. He finds the way in. He yells aloud and says, "The elf lord is coming to get you, Shagrat and Gorbag." He follows their sounds. He follows them. He goes into the guard room where they are. They're now dead. There's other dead orcs around. What's the nice thing about orcs? If you ever have to get involved in a battle with them, more often than not, they're going to kill each other. Okay? And so Sam's in that room. He's thinking of Frodo, and he starts singing a song. And he hears up above the ceiling a little reply. He goes upstairs, finds a way up, rescues Frodo, 9-10, who's lying naked on a heap of filthy rags. Sam goes up, comforts him. Frodo's thinking he's dreaming. He's like, "No, not dreaming. I'm here." Frodo asks, "Where are we?" Sam kind of tells him. Okay. 9-11. Sam asks, "Can you walk?" He says, "Yes, I can. Not hurt, only I feel very tired, and I have pain here." Reaches to the back of his neck. Every year after this, on this date, Frodo gets slightly ill because of the bite in his neck from Shelob. And every year on October 6th, Frodo also is laid up in bed because of the stab wound in his arm from the Morgul blade given to him by the captain of the Nine at Weathertop. Okay? So they talk a bit, and then Frodo says, middle of page 911. What time is it? 8:43. "They've taken everything, Sam. Everything I had. Do you understand?" Like, "Hello, Sam, moron, listen. Everything." And he cowers on the floor with his head in his hands. Why?
He thinks his ring's gone.
Failure. I failed. Okay? "Not everything, Mr. Frodo," Sam says. "Has it failed? Not yet. Might still, but
Not now.
I've got it now." "Frodo, you got it? You got it here? Sam, you're a marvel. Give it to me. Give it to me. You can't have it." Chill, man. He said, "No, not a problem." But then he says, "If it's too hard a job, I could share it with you, maybe." How does Frodo hear that?
You can't have it.
Yeah, he wants it. No, you want your thief. Channeling his inner Gollum, okay? He realizes what he said. He apologizes, etc. He says, "It's not yours. I have to carry it," etc., etc. Frodo, "That's fine. But if I can still help." Okay? So, they go into Mordor. How do they get past the invisible
File of Galadriel.
file of Glad, and it sets off an alarm bells and the whole 9 yards? Okay? So they go into the Land of Shadow. In 9:18, they got a ways to go. Page 918, this is a couple pages in. Sam says, Gollum's not dead. And Frodo replies, "Look here, Sam, dear lad, I am tired, weary, I haven't a hope left." So if he doesn't have a hope left, that means he's full of despair. "But I have to go on trying to get to the mountain as long as I can move. The ring is enough, the extra weight is killing me, it must go." That is, I can't carry extra gear. Okay? He says, "It's okay, don't worry. I'd carry it on my back if I had to." Okay? So, he gives Frodo his cloak, his elven cloak. Sam throws on a orcish one. All right? And he says, "That's better. I feel much lighter. I can go on now, but this blind dark seems to be getting into my heart. As I lay in prison, Sam, I tried to remember the Brandywine, Woody Inn, the water, etc." Sam's like, "Don't worry about it. Here you go, talking about water, and they're thirsty. They've been thirsty since they were midway up the stairs of Cirith Ungol. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her, your ladyship, all we want is light and water. Just clean water and plain daylight. Better than any jewels, begging your pardon. He says, but long way to Lorien. She can't hear us. Okay? They start off again. There's a black rider flying over them. Page 919. They face westward. They don't speak. Frodo breathes a sigh of relief after the black rider goes away. And we're told, away to their left, southward, against the sky that was turning gray, the peaks and high ridges of the great range began to appear dark and black in visible shapes. Light was growing behind them. Slowly it crept towards the north. There was battle far above in the high spaces of the air. What the hell does that mean? Battle high above in the far spaces of the air, or far above in the high spaces of the air. The billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back. When Tolkien when his son finally publishes the Silmarillion, we learn about the Valar, the gods, so to speak. Manwë, the chief of the Valar, is the god of the air. This, some of us think, this is an indication that the Valar are involved, so to speak. There's a battle in the high spaces. Again, it's Tolkien's Catholicism. Paul says, we wage war not against flesh and blood, but against spirits, powers, dominions, etc. Powers of the air. Okay? So, the shadows of Mordor are being driven back. Their edges tattering as a wind out of the living world came up and swept the flames and smokes towards the dark land of their home. Under the lifting skirts of the dreary canopy, dim light leaked into Mordor like pale morning through the grimed window of a prison. So what kind of light? Not even like this, through this grimed window of the Peck Hall prison. It's like if it were smeared with mud, but you got a little bit of light in. What was Sam, quote unquote, praying to Galadriel for? A little bit of light, a little bit of water. Look at it, Mr. Frodo. Look at it. The wind's changed. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up in the world there. I wish I could see what is going on. Sam is doing what? He's looking at the natural occurrences in the world, in the weather, and is saying, this is a sign of something. This is indicative of something. Why? Because he's in Sauron's home country. And even there, the darkness is being pushed back a little bit. And what are we told? It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. And what else? Into the next paragraph, the Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. The reason the clouds are being pushed back is the captain of the Nine has lost. Sauron never expected that to happen. Something's happening. The war is going well. You've got some hope now, right, Mr. Frodo? No, not much, Sam. When he says that's away beyond the mountains, what does he mean? That's a hell of a long ways away from where we are. Even if that's going well, we're in hell. It's literal hell. Okay? So Sam says, all right, I got one thing I wanted, a bit of light. Okay? Bottom of the next page, 920. They hear a tinkle of water. Sam springs forward towards it. If ever I see the lady again, I will tell her. Light and now water. Let me drink first. Why?
To check if it's safe.
If it's bitter, then it's probably poisonous, toxic. Not important if I die, okay? So, they go on. I'm going to skip a bunch. They get shanghaied, so to speak, in with a group of orcs that are marching. They march along with them for a while, and then they ditch them. And or on 932, at the very end of the chapter, Sam wakes up, throws himself to the ground, dragging Frodo down with him. Orcs fell over them, snarling and cursing. Slowly on hand and knee, the hobbits crawled away out of the turmoil. They lay still for a while. So after the orcs are all gone, Sam says, "Come on, Mr. Frodo, one more crawl, and then you can lie still." Okay? They crawl about 20 yards and collapse. Sam, chapter 3, Mount Doom, says, about 4 paragraphs in, or thinks, it's got to be 50 miles from here to Mount Doom. 934. And he realizes it's 50 miles. That's going to take a week or more. We're out of food, pretty much out of water. There could be no return. We're going to make it, but we're not going to make it back. It's like a bomber pilot being on a bombing run, taking longer, having to fly, do some things to beat off, get away from fighter jets and stuff, and realizing I'm going to be able to drop our bombs, but we're not going to be able to make it back. So that was the job I felt I had to do when I started. To help Mr. Frodo to the last step and then die with him? Well, if that is the job, then I must do it. What did he say in the chapter of the Mirror of Galadriel? After Galadriel said, "You can't go back home yet." Anybody remember what he says then? "I'll see through to the end and come back the right way or not come back at all." Notice he puts that second part second because it's like an afterthought. Oh, yeah, sure, we're going to achieve our quest. But then, or maybe not. Well, if that is the job, then I must do it. But I would dearly like to see Bywater again and Rosie Cotton and her brothers. First time Rosie Cotton's been mentioned, if I remember correctly. And the Gaffer and Marigold and all. Can't think somehow that Gandalf would have sent Mr. Frodo on this errand if there hadn't been any hope of ever coming back at all. He didn't. How much hope does he say there is in the Council of Elrond?
Very little.
Yeah, not much, but there's a little. Things all went wrong when he went down in Moria. I wish he hadn't. He would have done something. Well, unbeknownst to Sam, Even as hope died in Sam, or seemed to die, it was turned in new strength. Sam's plain hobbit face grew stern. This is Sam becoming the warrior he hasn't been. Almost grim, like the will hardened in him. And with a new sense of responsibility, he brought his eyes back to the ground near at hand, studying the next move. Why is that little sentence important? So he now thinks we're not going to live. We're going to achieve the quest and die. How do they do that? By taking the next step. And he's thinking, what's our next step? What is the next thing to do in order to get to where we need to be? Okay? He sees more light. Okay? Frodo says, we got to get up on the roads. Sam says, we got to get up on the roads. Staying off the roads increases the time it takes. All right? So, they do. They find a trickle of water, if I remember correctly. Then on 937, Frodo gets up quickly when Sam says, time for another start. He says, I can't do it, Sam. Sam says, then let me carry it a bit for you. Sam knows, just because of what he experienced at Cirith Ungol, the closer the ring gets to the mountain, what? The heavier it becomes. Not literally heavier, but the burden becomes greater. Okay? Frodo. After he goes a little berserk, he says, it's too late, Sam. You can't help me in that way again. That is, you cannot be a ring bearer again. I am almost in its power now. How do we know he's not fully in its power now?
Because he hadn't started walking the other way.
Okay, how else? I. He says I. If he were fully in its power, he's going to identify himself with the ring, as we will see him do in a moment. You can't help me in that way now. I am almost in his power now. And then he says, I could not give it up. And if you tried to take it, I should go mad. Okay, how much farther do they have to go?
51.
Well, that was earlier. They've gone some miles. We don't know how far. But what has Frodo just told us?
We can't part with it.
He's given away the end. He says, I can't give it up now. Well, why the hell go on then? He hasn't said the words that he's going to say, but he may as well have. Sam nods. I understand. He says, but we can still lighten our loads, and he drops off all his cooking gear and all the other stuff. Okay? So they keep going. And last gasp, page 940. They're at the base of the mountain. Now for the last gasp, said Sam as he struggled to his feet. He bends over Frodo, rouses him gently. Frodo groans. And Sam looks at him and says, I said I'd carry him if I had to, if it broke my back, and I will. And he picks up Frodo and he starts climbing up the hill. Okay? 942, 943. Frodo says he'll crawl. Okay? And they look like two bugs walking up this path or crawling up this path. And we're told in that paragraph that begins, so foot by foot, like small gray insects, middle of that paragraph, far off the shadows of Sauron hung, but torn by some gust of wind out of the world, or else moved by some greater disquiet within, the mantling clouds swirled and for a moment drew aside, and then he saw rising blacker and darker than the vast shadow, shades amid which it stood, the cruel pinnacles and iron crown of the topmost tower of Barad-dûr. That is, Frodo sees this. One moment only it stared out. And then he sees the eye. And Frodo's hand goes to the chain. Sam kneels by him. Help me, Sam. Help me. As his hand does what? Goes to the ring. So it grabs the chain and then starts moving down to where the ring is hanging on it. Okay? He lifts Frodo, draws his hands down to his own breast, letting his master's legs dangle. So he's got Frodo arms over him like this, and he's, holding him like this. So Frodo's hands are this way. Frodo's hand can't get to the ring. Okay? He climbs up, starts to walk, and whack! Frodo feels 943. A sudden weight smote him, and he crashed forward, tearing the backs of his hands that still clasped his master's. Then he knew what had happened. Wicked master! Wicked master cheats me. I'll go home. Let's go that way. Messenger praise give it his meal. Yeah, just give it. What did Gollum swear when he was tamed? Literally, almost all of you got this. I don't know. Maybe, across two classes. Maybe 10 people, I think, got it right. He swore to serve the master of the precious. He does not mention Frodo. He doesn't mention Sam. He doesn't mention hobbits. Why? Frodo should have taken a course in negotiations or contract law. Because Frodo doesn't make Gollum specify, I will serve the master of the precious. Be it known that said master is Mr. Frodo Baggins, number 4, Bag Inn, Bagshot Row, the Shire, the west of Middle Earth. The master of the precious is whom?
Sauron.
Nope. It's whoever has control of the precious. That's why when he within himself when Smaugam and Giagal, when Smeagol and Gollum argue back and forth about should they go through the stairs of Cirith Ungol and take him to Shelob? Well, yes, because what might happen? She'll eat them, she'll spit out, poop out, whatever, the remains, and that might include the ring. And then he thinks, we will be master. He's not breaking his oath. Okay? So, what did he swear, though? So he swore to serve the master of the precious, but he also, part of that long passage, he says he will not allow Sauron to get it. Okay? And Frodo says, are you sure? It will hold you to this. All right? So, with a violent heave, Sam rose up. He draws his sword, but he could do nothing. Gollum and Frodo were locked together. And Sam sees Gollum and Frodo, and we're told, even so, long paragraph that begins with a violent heave, Sam rose up. Even so, things might have gone far otherwise if Gollum himself had remained unchanged. But whatever dreadful paths, lonely, hungry, waterless, he had trodden, driven by a devouring desire and a terrible fear, they had left grievous marks on him. He was a lean, starved, haggard thing. All bones, tight-drawn, sallow skin. A wild light flamed in his eyes, but his malice was no longer matched by his old, griping strength. He still wants the ring more than, but he doesn't have the power, just the sheer muscular power to achieve what he wants. Frodo, down, down, he cries, clutching his hand to his breast, okay, beneath which is the ring. Down, you creeping thing, and out of my path. Your time is at an end. You cannot betray me or slay me now. And we're told. Then suddenly, as before, under the eaves of the Immenmule, Sam saw these two rivals with other vision. He's not seeing them with his eyes. It's like he's perceiving something deeper about them. And this is what we're told Sam perceives. A crouching shape, scarcely more than the shadow of a living thing, a creature now wholly ruined and defeated, yet filled with a hideous lust and rage. And before it stood stern, untouchable now by pity. Why? Untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white, but at its breast it held a wheel of fire. So, in this vision, Sam sees Frodo, this vision in white, holding a wheel of fire. Out of the fire there spoke a commanding voice. So, two questions. One, why is this stern figure in white now untouchable by pity? And what does it mean that out of the fire there now spoke a commanding voice? Well, let's see what the voice says. Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. Who's speaking? Is it the ring? Or is it Frodo? The voice comes from this. Or is it both? Are Frodo and the ring now intertwined? And I think that goes back to the question, why is Frodo now untouchable by pity? It's almost like, okay, notice the qualifiers, not the same as. It's almost like Frodo and the ring are now one. Frodo told Sam a few days previous, what? I couldn't give it up. The crouching shape backed away. Then the vision withdrew, and Sam saw Frodo standing, hand on his breath. Sam tells Frodo, watch out, he'll spring. And Frodo says, I've got to go on. Frodo makes his way up the last few feet of the path, and Sam turns around to look at Gollum. And is like, now at last I can deal with you. And it's almost like he's going to channel his inner Frodo. He is only an enemy. He deserves death. Gollum, don't kill us. Don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel. Let us live. Yes, live. Just a little longer. Why just a little longer?
He's gonna try again.
He's going to try again. Lost, lost, we're lost. And when precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust. Gollum is what? Said Gandalf back in the Shadow of the Past. His fate is bound up with the fate of the ring. Okay? Gollum knows when the ring is destroyed, he will be destroyed. What were they talking about in the last debate in the Council of Elrond? Probably everything that is preserved by the ring will be unpreserved, so to speak. He clawed up the ashes of the path with his long, fleshless fingers. Dust. This is what Gollum will be. Sam's hand wavered. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. His head probably hurts from being smacked with the rock. It would be just to slay this treacherous, murderous creature, just and many times deserved. And also it seemed the only safe thing to do. But deep in his heart there was something that restrained him. What? He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. Why? He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body. Enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. Tolkien includes two words in that sentence that I find utterly amazing and enigmatic. In life. Why doesn't he just say, enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever again?
Because Gollum, he has to die to, there's no, peace in life.
True.
An implication of an afterlife there.
I can't help but think that. I can't help but think that somehow in Tolkien's mind, unbeknownst to him, probably unconsciously or subconsciously, he's thinking there's going to be some peace for Gollum, some peace for Gollum after. No evidence for it. I don't think he ever addresses it in any of his letters. But Sam had no words to express what he felt. He thinks all this, but he can't. Okay? So what does he do? He shows Gollum pity and mercy. He doesn't strike without need. And he shows pity. Why? He knows how Gollum feels. Even though he wore the ring, what, an hour maybe? Bore the ring a few hours? Okay? Frodo puts on the ring, 9:45. We've got 15 minutes. Sam runs up to the crack of doom. He sees Frodo, black against the glare because the crevice in the mountain is behind him. Flames, or at least light from the lava shining up behind him. So he sees Frodo kind of in silhouette. And he says, Master. Then Frodo stirred and spoke with a clear voice, indeed with a voice clearer and more powerful than Sam had ever heard him use. And it rose above the throb and turmoil of Mount Doom, ringing. It's louder than the frickin' volcano. I have come, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. And he sets it on his finger. That is, Any mortal who possesses the ring long enough will ultimately be possessed by the ring, even though he began his ownership of it with good. When he puts that ring on, what immediately happens? The doorbell in Barad-dûr rings, or the alarm goes off. And Sauron, who's been looking out at his great battle in front of the Black Gates, seeing his forces kind of winning, turns his attention this way. When he turns his attention this way, what happens to all of his troops outside the Black Gate? They lose their will to fight. They lose their focus. They lose their concentration. And we're told, and far away as Frodo put on the ring and claimed it for his own, even in Sammath-Nar, the very heart of his realm, the power of Barad-dûr was shaken. The tower trembled from its foundation to its proud and bitter crown. The Dark Lord was suddenly aware of him, and his eye, piercing all shadows, looked across the plain to the door that he had made. The magnitude of his own folly was revealed to him in a blinding flash, and all the devices of his enemies were at last laid bare. In other words, put that in a two-word, modern street colloquial language phrase, oh shit. Sauron realizes, I've been a fool. And he's like, damn you, Gandalf, And all the remaining riders, black riders, they start heading towards. Sam gets up. He's dazed, blood streaming from his head, dripped in his eyes. He groped forward, and then he saw a strange and terrible thing. Gollum is dancing on the edge of the abyss, seemingly dancing with something. Okay? And then Gollum suddenly, Sam hears Frodo give a cry, and he can see Frodo now, and Gollum is holding Frodo's finger with the ring still on it. Bites it off. Okay? Precious, 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 my precious, oh my precious. And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment, and falls. Not like in the film where the ring, they go all Indiana Jones on the Last Crusade, the Grail's down there on the edge, the ring's down there, Frodo's trying to reach it. Gollum falls. Why? Gloating. And if you ever touch me again, you shall yourself be cast into the cracks of doom. And again, we come back to, was that Frodo speaking? Or was that the ring speaking? And the ring issuing a doom to Gollum. Okay? 947. Second half of the page after the break. Well, this is the end, Sam Genji, said Frodo. Okay? Master Frodo, and there's Frodo, looking like he used to look. Not as fat, obviously, a little worn, little war-weary. Your poor hand, etc. And Frodo reminds Sam, do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. There's a little misstatement there. Frodo didn't destroy the ring. Gollum destroyed the ring. Which is why a couple weeks ago I said, Frodo's a failure. In terms of the overall quest, Frodo gets right there and then totally fails. Why? It's built in from the beginning. Any mortal who owns or possesses the ring will be overcome. He had no choice, no will left in the matter. Gollum achieves the quest. And again, I think this is part of Tolkien's Catholicism. Even though Gollum doesn't intend to, Gollum does a very great good deed. A great good deed that in some Catholic circles would probably wipe out all of the bad stuff he did before. Why? Because this is the downfall of Sauron. Most people go, okay, let's put the deeds on the scale of justice, good and evil. Pretty much outweighs all this other stuff. So let us forgive him, for the quest is achieved. What does it mean, so let us forgive him? we shouldn't speak ill of Gollum from this point forward. He did it. And now all is over. What does Frodo mean by all is over? Put your head between your knees and kiss your you-know-what, because we're dead, Sam. Where are they?
In a volcano.
In a very active volcano that is starting to do what?
Right.
Yeah, its guts are starting to churn and, I'm glad you were here with me at the end of all things. And then Tolkien, in his very cruel, sick way, takes us from there to the field of Carmallin, one of the worst chapters in the entire novel, in my opinion. So I'm going to skip it entirely. Chapter 5, Steward and the King. Yeah, we do need to go there. Well, hold on a second. Field of Carmallin. We're actually going to go back. Frodo says again, I am glad you were here with me, said Frodo, here at the end of all things. Sam, this page 950. Sam says, I'm glad I'm here with you, and you're with me, and the journey's finished, but I don't want to give up yet. Why not? We're still breathing. The quest is achieved. Assume the doorway is the fissure, and lava starting. Maybe we could move away from the boiling hot lava. Just live a little bit longer. Well, whatever you want, Sam. There is no escape. He said, well, let's go down the path, at least. Why? Because they're inside the mountain. You get out on the path, Sam's not thinking this, but you might be able to be seen from, spy satellites and giant eagles. And that's where Gwaihir the Wind Lord finds them. Okay? So they get rescued, then you get the field of Carmallin, and Sam gets to see everybody. Frodo and Sam get to meet everybody. Chapter 5, Steward and the King. What does Tolkien do time-wise when we get to this chapter? He rewinds it. Okay, we've seen the ring destroyed. We've seen Sauron's forces defeated. And now he takes us back in time. And we see Faramir and Eowyn in the Houses of Healing. Okay? And Faramir's the steward of Gondor, because his father's dead. And to speed their healing, the leader of the Houses of Healing allows them to go up on this light terrace and look outside and take in fresh air and all that kind of stuff. And she keeps looking out towards the west, towards the east, towards Mordor, where her brother is marched and, all this kind of stuff. And Faramir says, would you mind if I came and stood out here with you? And she's like, whatever, dude, whatever you want. And he says, when she says, my window doesn't look eastward, he says, I can change that. So, when he says, you would ease my pain, she says, how? How should I ease your care? Bottom of 960. I do not desire the speech of living men. Would you have my plain answer? It is kind of, be honest. Eowyn of Rohan, I say to you, you are beautiful. In the valleys of our hills are flowers fair and bright, blah, blah, blah. You're more beautiful than any flowers, etc. For you and I have passed under the wings of the shadow, and the same hand drew us back. He says, you would ease my heart if you would allow me to come out here and speak with you and talk with you, etc. And the same hand drew us back. That is, Aragorn saved me, and Aragorn saved you. She has different thoughts about that than Faramir does. She says, 961, alas, not me, Lord. Shadow lies on me still. Look not to me for healing. I am a shield maiden, and my hand is ungentle. In other words, all I want is a sword. I need to kill something. But I thank you for this, at least, that I may not keep. Thank you that I can come out here and look towards the east. Cool. Okay? Mary gets sent to Faramir, etc., etc. Faramir comes from the houses. He sees Éowyn again standing looking out past the battlements. This goes on for several days. Okay? Finally, 962, he asks, what are you looking for? She says, Black Gate's that way, right? And he says, yes. How long since they rode away? 7 days. Okay? He says, Éowyn, I wouldn't have this world end now, or lose so soon what I have found. She's like, what did you find? What precious thing? I know not what in these days you have found that you could lose. But come, my friend, let us not speak of it, let us not speak at all. I stand upon some dreadful brink, and it is utterly dark in the abyss before my feet. But whether there is any light behind me, I cannot tell, for I cannot turn yet. I wait for some stroke of... It's like, she's standing there. She's not literally standing, like, getting ready to jump. But she's saying, all I see before me is what? Death, darkness. She says, there might be some light behind me, but I can't turn around. No hope. Total despair. All right? Faramir, we will wait for the stroke of doom. And we're told they said no more. It seemed to them as they stood upon the wall that the wind died, the light failed, the sun was bleared. Okay? Their hands meet, and then they see this big cloud rise in the east. And like a hand, it reaches out and then is blown away. Okay? Faramir, it reminds me of Numenor. That is, when Numenor fell and sunk beneath the seas. And he tells her what he's talking about. She asks, then you think that the darkness is coming? That is, you think Sauron won? It's unescapable? He says, no. I don't know what is happening. But he says, my heart says, nay, my limbs are light. A hope and joy have come to me that no reason can deny. In other words, I feel like something significant, major, important has happened. Éowyn, White Lady of Rowan, in this hour I do not believe that any darkness will endure. And he kisses her. Okay? Nothing else. Okay? Eagle comes, sings to them, etc., etc. Page 964. They've been called to go to the fields of Cormallen. Go celebrate with the king-to-be. She's like, no. Do you not know why? He says, could be two reasons. I don't know which one. She says, what do you mean? You do not go because only your brother called for you. Éomer, and not Aragorn. And to look on the Lord Aragorn and Lindell's there and his triumph would now bring you no joy. That's one reason. Your brother called for you, not Aragorn, because she has the hots for Aragorn. Or because I do not go and you want to be near me, or near me. I wished to be loved by another, but I desire no man's pity. He goes, no. You want Aragorn, I understand. He's taken, okay? She looks at Faramir, and Faramir says, I know it's almost time to go. Do not scorn pity that is the gift of a gentle heart, Éowyn, but I do not offer you my pity. You are a lady high and valiant, have yourself won renown, blah, 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 blah. But now were you sorrowless without fear or any lack, were you the blissful queen of Gondor, still I would love you. Éowyn, do you not love me? And I'm going to leave with this. Then the heart of Éowyn changed. Or else at last she understood it, and suddenly her winter passed, and the sun shone on her. What does it mean her heart changed? Fellow professor, Ryan Reed, some of you might have had him for something. He and I used to teach this. When I would teach a course in London, he came a couple times, co-taught it with me. He teaches this course now too. And one time we were talking about this, and he described this passage to me, and I've taken it stolen it from him ever since then. This is Éowyn's conversion. She converts from being a shield maiden to what? A servant maiden. Okay? We'll stop there. We'll pick up here on Thursday, which means obviously we'll definitely finish this. I'll probably start Harry Potter on whatever day that is, Thursday. Trying to think if I'll put up the quiz. I won't put up the quiz for the second half of Return of the King yet. Have I put up one for the first half?